Hi, this is Bharti and welcome to another episode of TFR Newsroom. And today we have with us Blair Lyon. You are VP of Marketing at Linode. Blair, it's good to see you again. This time we are talking remotely, not in person, but you still have the same vibe there.
Yeah, it's great to have the opportunity to talk to you again. Nice seeing you, Swapnil.
Excellent. And today we are going to talk about AWS and its alternatives. I mean, AWS, they are the behemoth there in the market. I'm just curious that why should we look at alternatives of AWS? What are the problems either your customers face or the community that you interact with, they face with AWS or any other public cloud where they do need to look at elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, there's this growing movement among a number of companies and developers as well that are looking for just alternatives, not only just to AWS, but the other kind of mega hyperscalers that are out there. And what they're looking for is kind of what they used to get, which is the great personalized service. They're looking for better, lower costs. And often you can save over half of your infrastructure costs by moving to an alternative provider. But one of the things that's kind of driving this movement, I guess, to alternative cloud vendors is that to a certain degree, the overall market has commoditized around these core primitives. And so what was once only available from providers like Amazon and some of the other larger ones is now available from a broader breadth of alternative cloud vendors. So you can get the same performance, compute and storage and other core infrastructure primitives that you need while paying half the cost and still getting the no-tiered, high-touch, 100% human support that you really want. So for companies that are growing businesses or SMBs that are tired of paying too much for their cloud or have seen that realistically 80% of what they need can be solved by these alternative cloud providers or more, that really gives them an alternative to go to save money, get better service, and ultimately also be able to defer on their risk as well if they're looking at like a multi-cloud implementation.
You're talking about cost. Are there any actually stats where do you compare the cost of the public cloud like AWS versus other clouds?
We have a series of stuff on our website where you can do a cloud estimator right there, and you can see the differences between Linode costs by compute type, by storage, things like that. And you can see the differences in terms of what our costs are in comparison to like an Amazon AWS or a Microsoft Azure or even a Google Cloud as well. And often you'll see typically 100, 130, even to 180% cheaper costs compared to those, depending on what your workload is and what configuration you're going with.
You mentioned Linode. If you look at AWS, Azure, or Google Compute, what are the other players that are there in the market? Of course, Linode is there, but when I look at Linode, actually, just a disclosure, I'm also a Linode customer. TFR actually runs on Linode, and we pay for it. But I have known Linode for so long, but I always thought of it as a web hosting, initially. What is Linode today, so that we can look at it from the context of this discussion?
When I think of Linode today, I mean, we really are situated perfectly as that alternative cloud provider. And I think one of the things to think about is when you're looking at, okay, well, you can go with the big mega clouds, I can pay more, get less service, and get greater complexity and some of the other issues like data lock-in and stuff like that. But it's more of like, how do you differentiate Linode versus everybody else? So there are these group of alternative cloud providers. And if you think about what are the definitions or the makeups of those groups, well, to be a true alternative, you have to be able to solve for most of those enterprise workloads. And you need to have some of the core services to be able to support that. So if you think about, well, I would need to have 24/7, 365 global support. I would need to be able to have a global network infrastructure. So you'd have to have data centers throughout the world. I would need to have kind of all the core computing kind of instance types to be able to solve at least 80% of all workloads that are out there. So you need to be able to have kind of those core capabilities where you can still provide that same high level of service that you're going to get from an AWS, but can be provided by a provider like Linode. And that's really where Linode has evolved into. We were launched 3 years before Amazon AWS back in 2003. And we've grown today to nearly 1 million customers worldwide. And developers and SMBs alike have come to trust Linode because of our independence, because of our kind of authenticity with the price performance we're able to deliver. Our whole mission is to make cloud computing simple, affordable, and accessible. And in that mission, we want to be able to be transparent in our pricing. We don't want to have any hidden gotchas. We don't want to suck you into vendor lock-in. We want to be able to provide a really transparent service for our customers and give them the controls they need to be able to innovate and to be able to grow their applications in the web and be able to innovate their business.
Right, and if I'm not wrong, last year it was your anniversary and you actually dropped pricing for certain features. So you're actually decreasing the prices instead of increasing them, right?
Well, that's one of the things Linode's kind of got known for is we've continually given back to our customers. And this again kind of goes back to our independence is we can just do things that other companies can't do.
Yeah, you don't have to go to board and you can you're committed or you are accountable to your customers, actual customers, not the board members.
Absolutely. We don't have shareholders, we don't have board members, we're not private equity backed or venture capital backed. We've been profitable ever since the first year back in 2003. And we have a very focused mission is to deliver the best possible developer experience we can, and in doing so, we're going to do things other people wouldn't do, like overinvest in customer support by having no tiered 100% human support 24/7, being able to give back when you have these opportunities, whether it's reducing the cost of our transfer fees, or that's reducing our cost of our node balancers, being able to provide more computing power and storage power to our dedicated CPUs like we did this last year. We want to be able to give those optimizations, those cost optimization savings back to our customer. So we don't just put them to our bottom line on profit. We want to be able to give those back to our customer because we have a trusted relationship with them, and they've given us a lot, and we want to be able to give back to them.
And since now we have established that there are alternatives like Linode, how easy is it to actually move someone's workload from AWS to Linode? Because I'm pretty sure that all these public cloud vendors, they do try to lock users in. So number one is how hard it is, and number two is are there tools or services that Linode offers which makes it easier for DevOps engineer to actually move their workload?
Yeah, so I mean, it does depend, right? So some workloads may not be appropriate. If you're using specialized services from Amazon, we may not have those comparable services, or a third-party service may not be available. So you do need to check on that, but it's as easy as contacting our professional services team, and they can do that audit for you for free. So that's great. 9 times out of 10, we've seen that there are third-party applications out there that can cover almost 80 to 90% of the kind of customizations that Amazon sort of bakes in to their sort of proprietary framework. So most of the time we can find a solution for you. And if we can't, we'll be very upfront about it and say maybe that particular workload is best suited to stay on Amazon, but these other workloads, we can save you significant cost savings by moving to Linode.
And how different is it, like somebody moving from, I don't want to single out AWS, but a public cloud hyperscale vendor to Linode versus from one vendor to other vendor? Is there any comparison as such?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it depends on the workloads, but being able to move from one cloud provider to another today is getting easier and easier. And if you're using products like Terraform or Rancher or others, there's other ways to move things around much easier. So we can help you through that and figure out what is the best migration, strategy for you. One of the things that we're offering coming up this next month is free migrations here in the US. So for a limited time, we'll be offering free migration services to a number of people who raise their hand and helping them migrate their workloads. But again, only if it makes sense to based on their needs.
So what are the specific either use cases or workloads that makes more sense for customers to move them out of public or hyperscale cloud like AWS to Linode?
Well, some of this gets into, if you're doing straight up compute and block storage, object storage types of applications, then we can totally help you. There's no real difference in terms of performance moving from Amazon. In many cases, we have better performance than they do in terms of our leveraging our AMD and Intel partners or just via our networking and peering. So sometimes we can actually deliver better performance. So things like that, like core sort of compute requirements, we're totally good. When it comes to kind of applications or use cases, typically CI/CD environments, being able to help with any sort of backup or failover is a great option. We have a lot of customers, big Fortune 50 customers that work with Linode. Of course, they're not doing their core infrastructure on us, but they're using us for these testing environments, using us for these failover environments, because why wouldn't you? Why would you pay more than necessary for something like that that's not that unique or requires some specialized feature that Amazon or one of the other big providers has?
So what I'm looking at is basically a pure multi-cloud approach where you can run some workloads in public cloud or hyperscale clouds like AWS or Azure, and you can run many of your workloads in Linode. It's not about if or situation that you have to go with AWS or with Linode. If I'm not wrong.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's one of the things that's kind of helped drive this alternative cloud movement is the advent of hybrid cloud or multi-cloud deployments. People have figured out that even though I'm sure Amazon and Azure would like to tell you that, oh, they have a bunch of custom, special sauce things on their infrastructure, which is why you need to consolidate everything, onto their clouds. Well, of course they're going to say that. That's what they would need to say to try and drive shareholder value. But in reality, as the cloud has become more and more commoditized, is that it's very easy to be able to move these workloads around and be able to set up a multi-cloud environment, especially with some of these frameworks that are now available to do that really easily. So kind of the tide has changed in terms of, hey, there's a bunch of special sauce out there at Amazon or one of these big guys, and I can't get it anywhere else, to the realization that these alternative cloud providers can provide the scale, the quality, the infrastructure that I need, and be able to supplement one of the mega clouds in a very simple way in a multi-cloud kind of strategy.
One of the myths or discussion there could be that when you look at AWS scale, it's totally different as compared to Linode scale. So there are kind of myths like the alternatives could not be that scalable. It cannot be that elastic. It could not be they don't have that capabilities or capacities, or they cannot scale when you need it. I do want to address some of those. First of all, you have already mentioned that not every workload is ideal for Linode. At the same time, not every workload is ideal for AWS. But I do want you to address some of those myths around that these alternative clouds are actually not as capable as the bigger players are.
Well, that's that's the whole thing, is that because of the commoditization of the cloud, is a lot of these capabilities, there's no difference in my hardware necessarily, on a rack in a high-end data center versus what Amazon has on their rack in their data center. So just even the performance of the compute power is basically identical, if not just small variations. And then the power of the network is, if you have a global network set up like we do and some of the other alternative cloud providers, we're already scaling very, very easily for big Fortune 50 customers already. So that's not an issue. And as long as you have the necessary network in place and the peering relationships, which especially for Linode, we have a huge advantage. I mean, since we've been around since 2003, is that we've been able to create the necessary relationships and connections to be able to get anywhere in the world and often have better performance than some of the hyperscalers that are out there. So that the fact that you're going to get better performance service from the big guys isn't necessarily the case unless you have some really unique workload issue that you need their capability. So I think, and that's one of the big misconceptions, is that the hardware, the performance of the network is going to be different. I think one of the other issues that often comes up is one of the things we talked about before, which is, hey, I need to have this kind of specialized services that I can only get on Amazon. Well, in reality, most of those services are available through third parties. So it's pretty easy to be able to replicate everything that you would do on Amazon, often for much cheaper and without the lock-in. So that's the other benefit, is you want to really avoid going all in on these cloud providers, because I mean that's what they want you to do. Of course, that's what their marketing would say, but don't buy into it, because then you're going to end up 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I have no way of kind of detangling myself from this infrastructure provider, because as we saw with Google's announcement the other day, whether we believe it or not, but where they say, hey, if we're not number two, we're not going to continue offering cloud services. These big companies have all kinds of ulterior motives, ulterior businesses, lots of other things, other shiny objects that they're going to focus on. And whichever one they get the highest return is the one they're going to invest in. The ones that get less return, potentially cloud computing, where the margins are going to become less, things are going to become more commoditized. Therefore, it's not going to be as interesting from a shareholder value perspective than it currently is. So that's one of the things that I think we need to watch out for as the market evolves.
Since we're talking about comparison with AWS, I'm just curious if you can tell us a bit about what kind of data centers you have around the globe, what kind of availability you have in the global market.
Linode we service 11 key regions all around the world. So everything from Singapore to Tokyo to our new data center in Australia and India, Frankfurt, London. We have 4 data centers covering the 4 corners of the United States and Toronto, also up in Canada. So we can service basically everywhere in the world right now, and also provide the necessary data sovereignty support. So big deal in Canada, becoming a much bigger deal, of course, in India with some of the new government requirements there. Our customers in Australia are ecstatic that we're now able to offer in-country service for them. So the Linode network is fantastic. It's all connected through a global fiber backbone using our next generation NGN network that now also supports automated DDoS protection. So there's tremendous power in the network that we have. And unlike other providers that maybe have more data centers, but they often just have multiple data centers in the same city, is that we've focused on providing the biggest reach we can to our customers. Because I said before, we have about 1 million global customers in every continent. So we need to be able to provide high performance, at a great value, cloud computing services really everywhere around the globe.
And as you are kind of reaching out globally, and you have all these customers, I'm also sure that as you're entering these new waters, there are some new challenges that you are seeing now versus the comfort zone you were in for a very long time. So what are some of the unique challenges that you are seeing as you get these new workloads or users that you want to address going forward in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we're focusing on right now is being able to respond not only to the multi-cloud pieces by providing, more integrations and connections through our one-click apps that'll allow you to, just with one click, be able to add services that you would normally get if you were part of Amazon. So be able to kind of draw parity that way, but through our one-click marketplace. So that's one thing that we're very excited about. The other is if you're looking at not only is there this trend of multi-cloud deployments, but of course, a lot of trending around hybrid cloud. So wanting to have private networks, be able to have bare metal, things like that. So a lot of our customers want to have kind of the perfect combination, the security and control and performance of bare metal servers and private networks, combined with the scalability of public cloud services. And so we want to be able to deliver both of those capabilities to them in a really simple to use, highly affordable mechanism like we do with all of our products. So bare metal servers is something that we're very excited about that we'll be offering this year. So we're really looking forward to that, which will help our customers kind of check more of the boxes and allow us to work in some of these other areas. Like if you're thinking whether it's healthcare or financial services or some of these areas where they want to have bare metal private cloud capabilities, now we can offer that.
I will go back to one previous comment that you made earlier. We discussed it about alternate open clouds. So how would you define Linode as an open cloud? What exactly does it mean? Do you mean by open ecosystem, or you mean by open source technologies? What exactly does it mean?
Yeah, and there's actually a little bit of everything. So if you remember going back in the Wayback Machine back to 2003, that's essentially how Linode was started. Was at the time cloud computing was very specialized. The software to run servers in the cloud was proprietary and very pricey, requires specialized expertise. And then along comes this open source project where Chris Aker, our CEO, kind of latched onto that, discovered that there's actually a better way of managing cloud infrastructure via these open source tools, and really leaned into the open source movement. And that's really the founding of Linode, has been on open source technology. And we've continued to iterate on that. We're now in our third version of open source technology that drives most of our servers. And things like our cloud manager are also open source. So on the open source movement and the power that brings, and also the democratization that allows to the market, is fundamental to everything that Linode believes in. And then when you think about open cloud, typically people talk about that as kind of the opposite of vendor lock-in. So how do I avoid vendor lock-in in any way possible? And a lot of that can come in how we write our APIs. It can be how we make our cloud manager open source. It can be how we avoid creating proprietary kind of dead ends for customers, being able to accommodate other cloud providers' formats so that we can ingest their content, or that if you want to move off of Linode back to another cloud provider, that you can do so easily. So all of those kinds of ideals and sort of frameworks that we focus on are all about avoiding vendor lock-in, and we're going to earn your business on our support, on our quality of service, and our pricing, and our relationship with you. But if for some reason it doesn't work out, or you want to be able to work with other providers, we're not going to have anything in your way to allow you to migrate to another provider.
If a customer chooses to move out of any of these public clouds, to Linode, one of the critical pieces today is Kubernetes. That is the orchestration layer almost everybody is using today. That's kind of become Linux of cloud. So what are these new emerging technologies, or some of the core pieces of cloud native world that Linode is bringing to its customers, so that customers can still leverage all those technologies?
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, because often people say, is Linode going to have the hundreds of products that an Amazon or Microsoft Azure or other big mega cloud providers build? And if you think about why are they building or acquiring a lot of those tools, is yes, their customers often are asking for it, but it also provides more lock-in opportunity for them as well. And we just don't believe in that. So our focus is going to be like the other alternative cloud providers, is we're not going to have hundreds of services. We're going to have those core 20, 25, 30 odd services, like database as a service, maybe bare metal, Kubernetes, things like that are kind of core infrastructure components today. And then some of those edge case additional things we're going to provide through our one-click marketplace, and through our integrations, and through our partners. And that's our approach. We're not going to chase Amazon with trying to build every possible product or feature. That's just not. That race has already been won. Those guys have done that. They can battle that out. But we're going to provide a legitimate alternative where you can get similar price or similar performance at a better price, and you can still be able to do most everything that you want to, just maybe with a combination of one-click apps and other third-party providers.
Right, and most of these services that we're talking about are based on open source technology that are mostly being kind of driven by CNCF. So customers can very easily bring in whatever they want, and I think your marketplace will also evolve, not to create a vendor lock-in, but so that vendors can bring those open source technologies to their users.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't want to slow down innovation. We want to be able to embrace it and be able to offer a open kind of platform that allows other people that are innovating in some of these key areas, or providing these specialized capabilities, to be able to leverage the core infrastructure that Linode's able to offer, and the performance on that we can deliver. That's really kind of the ideal. If I can get similar performance at a better price, and I'm not restricted on the capabilities that I can connect into it, and you can provide the necessary, procedures and connective tissue to do that really easily, then that's great. Then I have kind of the best of all worlds.
Yeah. So Blair, thank you once again for just talking about because at least people now know there are alternatives and they can easily choose and move. They don't have to really worry about getting logged in and just keep paying for years. I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to seeing you again in future.
Great. It's wonderful talking to you, Swapnil. Take care.